Hey guys, Wade Willis here for Wade's Re-Reviews, coming here to talk to you about the final episode of part 1 for this season for ReZero. Now, this episode was titled The Sound That Makes You Want to Cry, and there was a lot of crying in this episode from multiple people. Personally, not my favorite episode of the season, but I thought it was very good overall. Before I go any further, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Helps a ton. But yeah, guys, this episode, I'm a big fan of it. We learned a lot. Some theories I actually had were proven true in this episode, so I have to give myself a little pat on the back from that. But yeah, some crazy stuff. For me, there were two things that really stuck out to me. Both of them had to deal with changing our opinions of things that seemed obvious. The first one is that, like, the question of, is Satella as bad as we thought she was? I had started to think maybe she isn't that bad. Again, not chill or by any means, but I've started to come to the belief that maybe Echidna is a lot worse than we thought. Maybe Echidna's worse than the Witch of Envy. Perhaps her killing the other witches was a good thing. I'm not saying it was, but these are things that we need to think about. You got the Witch of Gluttony, who sets out all these mobbies out in society killing people. There's a lot of things that happened, perhaps, and all the things that Echidna's done, extremely unethical, with her just creating beings for her bidding, basically making them slaves. Not very good, and we've just reached the tip of the iceberg with Echidna. So, I don't know. Maybe there's a lot more to unpack with Satella, and based on her conversations with Subaru in this episode, not that I think she's a perfect person, a lot of things wrong with her, but I think there's a lot more to her, and she's not as bad as we thought. And number two, is Subaru's selflessness actually him being selfish? And I'm going to touch on both of these throughout this analysis of this episode. So, one thing, I was super pumped to see Subaru and Satella finally interact with each other, other than like her possessing him a few episodes ago. They're actually talking, and it's not just her saying, I love you 5 million times. She did say it about 4 million times in this episode, but there was actual dialogue with her. Super pumped to see that. And with regard to the first topic where I said, is Satella as bad as we thought? So she's telling Subaru that she loves him. We've heard her say that before, but she doesn't want him to be hurt. She doesn't want him to be sad. And here's the key. She wants him to love himself more. That's super important to me, because someone who's normally very manipulative and like a sociopath the person that they're in love with and they want to control, they don't want them to love themselves more. Wanting someone to love themselves more is a sign that someone actually is more compassionate, and like, she's not necessarily a good person, but like, I haven't seen enough things to say she's good or bad, to be honest. But the fact that she wants him to love himself more, and she touches on this a lot, that sticks out to me, and I think that's going to be very important. And think back, Echidna has not said that at all. She wants him to reach his goals, and she wants tastes of everything that he does. I haven't heard her say once that she wants him to love himself more. So that's important. She says to him, like, you've saved me. My wish for you is that you are saved. Okay, and I'm going to get back to this thing. And this is something that really annoys me about Subaru. He does a lot of dumb things, but the dumbest thing is when he gets like a little piece of information, it doesn't like get through to his head, which some of it may be for the plot to I'm assuming a lot of it's for the plot, so we find out things later on, but I can still be annoyed with him as a character because this is what he's doing. Oh, he saved her. How? When? He doesn't remember it. Like, this is something very important. If I'm in that situation, that's one thing I will say. I would be trying to figure out how and when. And maybe she won't tell you, but that's something I would want to know, and I'd at least ask the question. A lot of us can think we'd be brave. I don't know if I'd be brave. I may be a wuss in situations that he would be in this, but I can tell you for sure I would ask, when the hell did I save you? How did I save you? Like, I need to know more. Simple. And she tells him, they're talking about the return to death, and he said, like, oh, all this does is give me horror and like suffering, all these things. And she wants him to live, and that's part of the reason he has the return by death, but also, like, she wants him to, like, he has all these lists of people that he needs to save. She tells him, like, I want you on that list of people you're trying to save. Like, I thought that was obvious, which, I mean, yeah, like, she has a point there. And this kind of touches a bit on the, like, selflessness thing. He doesn't ever, and I'll get into this a bit more later on, but, like, he's not taking care of himself. And the people who care and love about him, when they see this, that worries them and makes them feel bad. So someone who's, like, too selfless, like Subaru's extremely selfless in a lot of these things. Sometimes he's motivated in a selfish, very rarely, but God, he loves Emilia. Sometimes he does dumb things for Emilia, and it's kind of selfless, but it's because of his love for her. It's kind of weird. But overall, he's pretty selfless. But him just working himself to the bone over and over again, that hurts the people around him. And I'm going to touch on that later on more. And she's trying to, like, console him and tries to touch him. He eventually, like, bites off his tongue. And I think, he eventually bites off his tongue with the goal of killing himself, I think. I guess he believes that's the only way he could end his life. Like, in that situation, there aren't weapons around him. There's 7 witches. Maybe by biting off his tongue, he can bleed out. I guess that was his thought process. If any of you guys have read the light novel and, like, understand this chapter, like if what his thought process was, please comment below. Don't give spoilers ahead, but I would love to know what his thoughts were in that, and if they explained it better in the light novel. Then he's, like, kind of hallucinating. The witches are fighting amongst themselves. Some of them want him to just be allowed to kill himself. Others are trying to save him. It's pandemonium. Pretty interesting to see the way different witches look at the situation. He's kind of going into the visions in the trial. And when he's freaking out, there's one point where Satella's like, what did you see in these trials? Like, she's, like, really worried about him. And you see that she truly does care about him. Which I could say that Echidna likes him and maybe has a crush on him in a way, but I don't see the compassion that Satella has towards him. I don't know. If you guys disagree, let me know, but that's my opinion. I'm kind of, you guys know I've been obsessed with Echidna. I still like her a lot. She's a really cool character, but for the witches, I think I've switched to Satella, which is strange. I never thought I would say that. So, Carmilla uses her Faceless Bride ability and kind of shows him the light and, like, positive things that, like, people have said to him, like, especially Rem and Emilia. and that kind of breaks him through, and he wants to live again. Very important. And he kind of like was waking up, and then Minerva like headbutts him, and I think this headbutt like heals his tongue and stuff. That's what I thought. Again, tell me if I'm wrong here, but that's the vibe I got. And I watched it through twice, and that's what I assumed happened. That Carmilla kind of like brought him out of the darkness, and then Minerva like healed him. So that's what I thought. I could be wrong. Subaru ends up not accepting Echidna's contract, and then Echidna gives him a little bit of a tip. She tells him that Garfield is scared of the outside world, and in order to free him from his circumstances, he needs to break the spell. Again, Subaru like probably would have been good to ask how you break the spell. I don't know. Duh. I don't know. Like, does anyone else think I'm not crazy for thinking he should have probably asked how to, instead of being like, oh, whoa, why are you helping me? Sure, say that too, but maybe ask how you break the spell. That would have been solid question. He asks a lot of questions in the story, not ever at the right time, in my opinion. When Subaru denies Echidna's thing, he tells her that he's going to try to claim his heart and people's future. And she tells him this path's super difficult. It would be easy if he just gave up his heart, which to me is the Roswaal approach. And I'll get into Roswaal more in a bit. But if he takes Echidna's path, that leads to him essentially dying inside and becoming Roswaal. And before he leaves, he does thank like all the witches, and he's kind of a dick about it and says like kind of all like, you're monsters and I'll never understand you type of thing. I'm like, dog, like probably not, like they're super powerful, maybe don't be a dick. I don't know, call me old fashioned. And Satella tells him to fight alongside with people who care about you. Again, this is another thing that makes me feel like Satella is not as bad as she seemed. There's a lot more to her that I'm really excited to learn about. Then she says, one day you must kill me. And Subaru says, I'll save you. Typical Subaru response. Guys, I'm not gonna lie. I'll just get to this here. I have a theory, and I haven't seen anyone else say this, but I don't watch any videos or anything of people who have read forward in the light novels. But and maybe this is an obvious opinion, but I truly believe that Satella is Emilia from like either another timeline or world. I think that they are the same person, and that Emilia will eventually develop into who Satella is. We already saw Yandere Emilia, who's kind of muttering and saying, like, acting a little bit crazy like Satella. The voice actor is the same. That's not super important for anime, but I did want to note it. I do think that they are the same person, which would make sense because Subaru saved Emilia countless times. But, again, I feel like there is a multiverse thing going on. We already know that Subaru came from another world, but I do think that there's different timelines, and maybe these timelines where Subaru dies, other people, like, those timelines continue moving forward with Subaru dead and people mourning his death, like how the second trial shows him. Because one of the witches, I can't remember who it is, it might have been Minerva, but like she was saying, like, you can't forget about the people who mourn you when you die. She could be alluding to the witches who maybe see the timeline following Subaru, so they see all the times he dies, and maybe they're mourning because of it, or just maybe there are other timelines and all of that stuff, which can be a bit confusing. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that's kind of how I'm seeing it. Maybe we will see later on that Satella also came from the normal everyday world, and somehow Subaru saved her when she was a little kid and she switched over this world for 100 years. I don't know. There's a lot of different things that could happen, but I feel like, to me, it makes sense that she would be Emilia. And that's just how I feel. Maybe a stupid idea. Maybe a lot of people have the same opinion. I don't know. But that's what I'm thinking right now. Subaru transports back, and we find out that he's lost his qualification. Patrasche, his dragon, saved him, and I think she might have hurt herself a little bit trying to save him. And then we see that she loves Subaru. That's kind of what we find out from Otto, which we already knew because in one of the other timelines she's already tried to save Subaru and sacrificed herself by throwing Subaru away and getting killed by Garfield. So, and I think there's a few other examples where Patrasche has saved Subaru, but she's awesome. My favorite dragon ever. But it's not super important, but I do feel like it is pretty important because that's kind of showing Subaru has his blinders on so much he doesn't realize all the people and beings that actually do care for him. And again, he does dumb stuff that makes those people and beings worry about him. And then we get the news that I predicted last week, that Roswaal actually sent the assassins over to the mansion to control and manipulate Subaru. He says, when he gives this news to Subaru, he tells Subaru that I'm doing this he's doing this so Subaru will sharpen his resolve. And Subaru's trying to get him to call off the assassins and tells him, hey, I can't even do the trial. I lost my ability. And he kind of doesn't care and says, Echidna will give it back to you if you ask. So, again, I had a feeling Roswaal was pulling the strings and he's trying to make Subaru turn into him. One can argue, does Subaru actually turn into Roswaal in another timeline? Is Roswaal Subaru from another timeline? I don't think so, but kind of, I don't know, some of the things that would make sense a little bit, but I don't necessarily believe that. That's just me throwing another possibility out there. And then Subaru kind of runs away. I believe he's heading towards the mansion, and Otto comes out of nowhere and is offering his help, and Subaru's doing his own thing, trying to calculate out stuff, is trying to hide that he's really in trouble, and kind of on the edge of breaking, because he's muttering to himself when Otto finds him, and then he tries to flip a switch to be everything's fine, and Otto punches him in the face and tells him hey, stop trying to put a tough front up in front of your friends. Big fan of that by Otto. Otto's developed into such a good friend in this show and an awesome character. I initially thought he was just kind of a doucher in the first season, and now I really like him. He is an awesome friend. And yeah, guys, I believe that's the end of this part one of the second season. He is really kind of stuck right now because he can't continue on with the trial because Echidna kicked him out. He doesn't know how to break Garfield's curse. He's trying not to use Return by Death too much because he has realized that's breaking him mentally. And then the assassins are heading to the mansion and they're strong as shit. I'm really unsure of how this is going to unfold because he's kind of screwed either way. Garfield set it up that it looks like he's going to have to choose to let one group of people die, and Garfield's trying to make it so that he has to choose the saving Emilia side and doing the trial. But I don't know. I feel like he's going to end up by the end of this next season fixing both somehow. He's going to have to unlock Garfield. Would have been good if he asked Echidna how to actually do that. Maybe that's how they start off the next season. But I don't know. I'm really excited. I'm actually going to read ahead in the light novels because I'm going to have to know what happens, and it's driving me crazy. But yeah, guys, what did you think of the season? Did you think this episode ended this part 1 amazing like I did? Do you guys think my theories make sense, or do you think they're stupid? I'd love to know in the comments below. Hey guys, this is Wade Willis. Thanks for watching my video. Here's 2 other videos I think you might like, and don't forget to subscribe to my page.